All right, it's your boy MBK in the building, and today we're talking about the greatest Hollywood action movie of all time, Mission Impossible Fallout, and I got a special guest with me, Brendan Talks Movies. Feel free to introduce yourself, man.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Brandon. On TikTok and Instagram, I go by Brandon Talks Movies. But yeah, I talk movies. I've got a podcast, the Cinemaster Podcast. Um, so yeah, MBK and I, we've known each other for a while now because of TikTok and kind of go back and forth. So yeah, when you reached out and you're like, "Hey, do you want to talk Mission Impossible Fallout?" I was like, "Been looking for an excuse to rewatch Fallout." So
Yeah, I gave you one, didn't I?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We went live once on TikTok, which was a really cool experience as well.
Yeah, we've been live, I think, a couple times.
Yeah, no, that was fun. And let's hop into it. My first
Yeah.
question was, what's your first reaction seeing this movie on the big screen back in 2018?
Um, so Mission Impossible is one of my favorite American franchises. For me, it's like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are kind of like those are their own thing. So if we take Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, set them off to the side, for me, it's Mission Impossible and The Matrix are my two favorite movie franchises. Um, And so I was eagerly anticipating Fallout. Rogue Nation was incredible. I stand by there is no bad Mission Impossible movie. I know some people want to talk down two. I don't think that two is bad. Um, so when Fallout was announced, I was really excited because Rogue Nation had been so good. Uh, and there was just something about the trailer,
Yeah.
that first trailer. Look, I think I am not a fan of Imagine Dragons at all,
Yeah,
but
the victim song just works in the trailer. It
that
was
song just works, you know. And it was called Friction, I think it's called.
that friction,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I was like, dude, this looks like it could be the best Mission Impossible. And I went and saw it opening night by myself in IMAX, and I was immediately like, this is one of the best action movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So I
and
was thrilled.
yeah. And for me, Mission Impossible has a big part of me because Ghost Protocol was the movie that made me fall in love with movies. Seeing like
Mm.
the iconic Burj Khalifa scene when I was 11 years old, my mind was blown. And I actually didn't see the trailer for Mission Impossible Fallout because I was trying to go in blind as possible for this film.
Mhm.
And I was jaw dropped because there's like people talk about Tom Cruise entering himself and still continue to shoot. Seeing that in the big screen, that made me cringe a little bit because the backstory during the whole chase sequence from Tom Cruise going after Henry Cavill's August Walker, which was such a
Yeah,
incredible
the
moment.
the foot scene for me, like the joke is that when you're watching the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers with someone, and
Yeah,
Aragorn kicks the helmet, like the joke is like someone's gonna say, "Oh, he broke his foot there." For me, it's the Ethan Hunt jumping off the roof, like knowing exactly where that shot is where he broke his foot.
yeah,
And what's crazy is how much of the film they shot with a broken foot. I
I
mean, he
know.
does the whole run essentially after that, he does the rest of it with a broken foot.
Yeah, and it really shows how committed Tom Cruise is to be an action star to entertain us. Like whether you like him or not, you had to appreciate the work it brings in. But there's not a lot of action stars doing that in Hollywood in general. And
Yeah.
another issue with Hollywood movies, I find there's so many quick cuts and shaky cams, so you cannot really see the action. So say McCoo and Tom Cruise have a steady cam action while he's doing these really insane stunts, makes you appreciate Tom Cruise more and the filmmaking as a whole for this film and the other Mission Impossible movies that they did together in general, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Cruise is um such an interesting like movie star. The Mission Impossible franchise is essentially he has been the like showrunner for it. Like he's been the producer carrying it through from the very beginning. Um and so I mean, as a franchise, it's so interesting to think about Tom Cruise as an actor, but also as a producer, the kinds of decisions that he has made for this franchise. I mean, for one, the that for the first 5 films, he worked with a different director every time. And with each of those directors, he never was like, "Hey, John Woo, this is the style of Mission Impossible that Brian De Palma made. Please match that."
Yeah,
He basically allowed all of these directors to come in and tell their stories with their own voice. Mission Impossible 2 feels like an American John Woo film.
yeah,
Mission Impossible 3 feels like a J.J. Abrams film.
yeah,
Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol, feels like a Brad Bird movie. And he has he's always allowed himself to work with these filmmakers and have them tell the story in their way, and he is willing to be a participant in that.
yeah,
And so when it comes to something like, Fallout, his second Mission Impossible film with Chris McQuarrie, and I think that it was their fifth film they'd worked on in some
yeah.
capacity together.
Because they did Jack Reacher 2012 together, if I'm not
Yeah, so
mistaken. Yeah,
they
yeah.
did Jack Reacher together. They did Valkyrie together. I want to say that Chris worked on was I think he wrote Edge of Tomorrow. And then they did the next 2 mission films together. So this is their 5th film. And to me, like, it's such a testament to when you find someone that creatively you click with,
Yeah.
like, it really can make magic happen, because no matter how good those first 4 Mission Impossible movies were, Rogue Nation and Fallout are undeniably, in my opinion, the 2 best Mission Impossible movies. And I just think that it's a testament to how well those 2 get each other. And if you listen to the commentary tracks, the way that they talk about the back and forth between them it's incredible. Like, the
Yeah.
synergy they have as a duo.
Yeah, and the duo works because they have such a great understanding with each other, and they bounce off ideas from each other to bring out these incredible sequences. And like I feel like you said, Tom Cruise respecting other filmmakers, making their own craft. That's such a rare thing to actor to do because like there's many times actors like, nah, director, do this differently and stuff like that. But like Tom Cruise allows these directors to showcase their own vision, and I think that's something really awesome that he does. In any of the movies he's part of, right?
Yeah, and what's cool about this is that because he's also this producer that's run this franchise, one thing that, if you listen to these commentary tracks, that you hear how many ideas Tom Cruise has about these films, that how much of them he is coming to Q or Chris McQuarrie and saying, "Hey, I think we should change this." There's a number of sequences. There was one sequence when he's getting ready to head to Paris,
Or the Halo
and
Jump sequence, right?
so before that,
Right.
when they're at the tarmac and they're about to get on the plane, and Alec Baldwin's talking to Tom Cruise. And then that's when Angela Bassett and Henry Cavill end up coming in. When Angela Bassett and Alec Baldwin are talking to each other, originally they had shot a lot more of Tom Cruise in that scene. And the plan in the original cut was to be focusing a lot more on Ethan Hunt as like the POV for that scene. But Tom Cruise, which you never hear a lead actor of his size and stature say something like this, Tom Cruise goes, "Hey, you're focusing on me way too much in this scene. I need to be the only time I should really come up is when you're referencing me as the scalpel." And that's when they go, "Oh, you're right." And they go back and they use the footage of Alec Baldwin and Angela Bassett talking to each other. And then
Yeah.
as soon as she says, "You prefer a scalpel," they show Ethan. And when she says, "I prefer a hammer," it cuts over to Walker.
Yeah, I love that
So just
sequence.
genius moments like that, those things come from Tom Cruise saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
you're focusing too much on me. Focus on these characters." That stuff's brilliant.
Yeah, that stuff is brilliant. Oh, speaking of brilliant, I love the whole fake news sequence in the
Oh
beginning.
yeah,
Oh
the
yeah.
mousetrap. Yeah. That's so good.
And then like I love the fact in the beginning, obviously Ethan Hunt chooses to save his friend being Luther, and that brings in consequences for his actions because Angela Bassett's character has to bring in August Walker to keep him on check. And I
Hmm.
thought that was like really well written in there, and realistically it makes sense because they lose the plutonium because of that whole interaction they had. And it also shows Ina Hunt being such a caring, loving friend for Luther because obviously Luther has done so much for him throughout the whole
Hmm.
movies.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I love the relationship between Luther and Benji and Ethan. And after that, there's a there the that great um the great line from Alec Baldwin where he says, he's talking to Ethan. He says, "There's some flaw deep within your core being that simply won't allow you to choose between one life and millions. You see that as a weakness, but to me, that is your greatest strength." And I
yeah,
think that that is like the character statement for Ethan Hunt is that he cares about the one person. And in some cases, whether it be good or bad, he is so worried about the one person that he can make a mistake to allow for something like the plutonium to get stolen.
yeah. And another thing I like about this movie is like the whole mystery of John Lark that we're just always lurking to see who is John Lark. And actually, let's just dive into the Halo jump sequence because I feel like that sequence with the like gray and you see the lightning, it brings so much anxiety because they're running out of oxygen during that whole sequence, and you see Tom Cruise in Hunt saving Henry Cavill's August Walker, and I thought that whole played out really well with the circle camera movements too. I don't know how they did it personally. It's like
Yeah, so it's all in camera. So um everything that happens from the time that basically when Walker pulls the oxygen tank, the oxygen hose out of Ethan's helmet
yeah.
is all one shot that's actually happening.
Yeah.
So they actually shot that over in Dubai. And because they're like, there's some interesting airspace like rules around Paris. And
Oh
so
yeah.
it's really difficult to shoot around Paris. Like all those helicopter shots that they get of Paris later in the film, they had to get like really, really high clearance to get those shots. So like we're gonna do the Halo jump in Dubai, and yeah, that shot it switches. So when let's see, so basically like it's facing Ethan. Walker pulls it out and starts walking, and then we focus on Ethan, and then it turns as Ethan starts walking towards the end. He plugs it back in, starts walking towards the opening of the plane. We see Walker dive out. So in that camera movement, they'd switched to the stuntman for
Yeah.
Henry Cavill, and then the cameraman, who is a professional who is a professional skydiver, gets in front of Tom Cruise and backs up and basically falls backwards out of the plane. So that's all happening like for real.
Yeah, no, that's
And
insane.
yeah, and they just fell backwards. And what's cool is that filmmaker, the one recording is a documentarian. He had never shot a narrative film before, and so you just shoot these things differently. So he's having to focus. Normally he would be like 10, 12 feet away and being able to kind of shoot whoever's skydiving. But because it's a narrative film, they need to be focusing on Ethan's face. They were like 2 feet away, camera to Tom Cruise's
Yeah.
face, which is not normal. And so it was like a more dangerous jump than it normally is
Yeah.
because of them needing to shoot it the way they did.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that no one got injured during that jump too,
I
because
know.
like I heard halo jumping is probably one of the most dangerous jumps they could do, if not the most
Yeah,
dangerous.
it's really dangerous.
Because aren't you not like 6,000 feet up like in the air when you're jumping for halo jumping, or say
I don't know exactly like how high they go, but I know that it's like you're almost essentially in like past Earth's atmosphere at that point, I
yeah,
believe. Like you're right there.
yeah, because you see like a sequence, like you see the moon during that sequence too, a little bit, right? Before
Yeah,
they jump in, I'm like, oh dang,
it's fun. So I found out that's the only entire CG shot in the Mission Impossible franchise.
oh, that's CGI. Damn, I thought
Yeah,
they sure went to the moon. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, whoa, wait.
yeah. I thought that was a real shot for forever. But yeah, McQuarrie said that that was a 100% CGI shot, and what they did to kind of mask it is it kind of has like that like heat thing going on where it kind of is like slightly blurry, as if
Yeah,
like you're looking at something like from very far away, like zoomed in, and they did that to obscure the CG. Is really clever.
yeah, that's clever, bitch. Like you cannot really tell that CGI too, because it looks like a moon. Like
Yeah,
that's crazy.
it's great.
Um,
But the thing
then
about that Halo jump scene is just it's amazing because it's so intense. And I
yeah,
love I can't remember who said this, but I remember someone talking about about writing and saying, you know, whenever you want to heighten something, take a stressful situation and then find something else that's stressful to throw into that situation.
yeah,
So you already have this Halo jump, which in itself is extremely dangerous, and now you throw in this lightning storm
yeah,
and then throw in the fact that Walker doesn't care and he's still going to go. So now Ethan's stuck and he has to go down. And
yeah,
now they're stuck in here. And then, you know, and then it
yeah,
twists again. And now August Walker is knocked out by this lightning bolt. And now he has to like give him his oxygen. Like it gets
yeah.
all insane, you know?
Yeah, and I love like the whole thing ends with August Walker said, "You, I think you lost your oxygen." It's such an
Yeah.
asshole move from this guy because you know and tries so hard to save a guy he doesn't care about, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
And all Ethan can do is just, okay, you know?
whatever. And then that leads to the sequence where the better sequence. Well, before that, to try and get the mask of John Lark, basically the who has a day with a White Widow. I almost said Black Widow
Mhm.
by but White
Yeah.
Widow, and at least see that awesome, washroom fight scene that I really enjoyed. Very steady cam, you feel every single punch. It doesn't really feel like a Hollywood action movie during that fight scene. At least I thought it didn't.
Yeah, I think what's unique about that fight, um, especially in an established action franchise like Mission Impossible, with a star as big as Tom Cruise, is that if you watch it and just kind of pay attention, Ethan and August get their asses handed to them.
Yeah,
They get worked by John Lark, and it's kind of the fact that it's a 2-on-1 that they're able to make it happen,
yeah,
not to mention the fact that Ilsa comes in and kind of saves them as well. Um,
yeah. I needed his face. It was so, I
yeah,
remember. Yeah, that's
but
funny.
I mean, the choreography is so good, and the guy who plays, you know, the fake John Lark, who I can't remember his name, he is the stunt double for Emily Blunt in Edge of Tomorrow,
Oh
which is
yeah,
where they met him, and he's so good, but I just love how it feels like a fight that's actually happening. Like if you look at something like one of the things about The Rock, right? And Jason Statham does this same thing too, where they really don't feel ever like they're losing the fights that they're in. They
yeah,
always feel like they have the upper hand. And those fights just kind of get drawn out and you're kind of waiting for them to win that fight. Whereas something like when you look at this fight, or when you look at something
like John
like
Wick
The
franchise.
Matrix, I think John Wick's pretty good at this too. The Matrix, which makes sense because you know Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves, that they are definitely influenced by the way that Yuen Woo-ping would choreograph fights, where it feels like both people are trading and both people are equal.
Yeah,
And to me, that's what makes a really good fight sequence is when it feels like anyone could win that fight.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, you have fights like in the raid where it's, you know, Tom and he's like absolutely destroying people, but
yeah,
that works because it's like a 1v12. But when
exactly.
you have like him and his brother fighting Mad Dog, that fight has to feel like anyone could win at any point. And I think that that's what happens in that bathroom scene where it's
Yeah,
the fake John Lark versus Walker and Hunt. And you're like, anyone could win this fight because they feel so evenly matched.
yeah. I mean, have you seen Killzone 2 yet?
I haven't seen Killzone 2. I've seen the first one though.
I mean, there's a final fight between three characters, and it very much feels like Mad Dog versus Rama and Andy. And I thought that whole fight scene with Tony Job and forgot the other two actors' names, but that was amazing too. Which
Zhang Jin is
John
who you're
Jin,
talking.
yeah,
Yeah.
John Jin, yeah, yeah.
I have the film. I just haven't seen it yet.
I had the film right there too. That's crazy. I got the same copy. I was trying to find the first Killzone. I can't find it anywhere. So I'm like,
I've got a copy of it,
oh,
but
you got a copy of everything, man.
I have a lot of Hong Kong,
Yeah,
Indonesia
yeah,
films. I got a lot of films. I got like 2,000.
yeah. And you know what I like about that scene is like the little subtle humor. Before the fight scene when I mean not John Lark, August Walker knocks him out with the briefcase. It's like they need the mask. I thought that was a cool little comedy moment there. And then after the fight scene, it also felt it's like you have no idea what you're getting into, and then you see Tom Cruise like, what am I getting into? Like, like that little subtle like humor just works in this
Yeah,
franchise.
one thing that I love about Fallout is that it feels kind of like, they've gone through so many different directors in this franchise, and it feels like they've kind of in this one taken all of the bits that worked from previous Mission Impossible movies and kind of scattered them throughout. And things like what you're talking about feel like they're straight out of Ghost Protocol. Like the mask thing, him hitting the guy in the face with the mask, and now the mask briefcase doesn't work. They can't scan his face, which brings up almost the same exact situation from Ghost Protocol, where they have to pretend to be the broker and the buyer at the Burj Khalifa. And so we kind of get that same
Yeah,
joke, the same situation where it's like, okay, I have to now go in there bare face and pretend now that I am John Lark because I got no other options, which
yeah,
leads to all that humor that you're talking about. It's great.
yeah. And you know what? I really like the first interaction between Tom Cruise and Vanessa Kirby. I thought their chemistry on screen was really great,
They're
especially
great together.
especially the scene when Vanessa Kirby like stabs someone and does like a little like quick like I'm thing like
She
third
does like
thing.
that butterfly knife thing and then
Yeah,
stabs him and then she like cocks her head to him.
yeah,
Like,
like
yeah, look what I can do.
yeah, that's what I was trying to describe. Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
great. And like I love that fact that White Widow is such a mysterious character. You realistically don't know where she's trying to go in this film. And that
Yeah. I wrote some notes about the White Widow because the thing about her that I love this, is that her introduction is very antithetical to what a lot of franchises tend to do with a character like her. Um, so I'm sure you probably picked up on this. Let me know if you haven't. But her mom is Max
yeah.
from the first Mission Impossible movie, and this movie does not even really dwell on that. There's not, when Ethan walks in and he sees her and she's standing in that like thing at the microphone, which originally he walks in and she's actually supposed to be singing. There's like a whole musical number that she was going to be singing when he walked in, but they cut it because they were like, this doesn't really work. Um, she's giving a speech about Max and saying, my mother, and she mentions Max one time. She's off screen when she says it. So if you're not paying attention, you may not even really recognize it. But that's really the only clue we get that her mom is an existing character in this franchise, where if this was happening in the MCU, this would be like her face would be like a huge thing in the
Yeah,
background so that we
exactly.
could go, oh, this is the daughter of so and so.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to the story that she's Max's daughter. it's just kind of like a fun nod to
Yeah.
this previous character in this franchise that I think is really fun. But it's
Yeah.
not like this huge deal, and I think that's so interesting in a franchise that's on its at this point sixth film and is not like being trying to burden itself down by like constantly like referencing and connecting to older
Yeah.
characters from at this point like 25 years ago.
Exactly. And like I like the character a lot. I like her role in Dead Reckoning as well. I'm hoping she returns in Mission Impossible 8. I think she does.
I would imagine so. I'm trying to remember if she makes it out alive.
I
I think she does.
I
I
think
haven't
she
seen.
does.
I saw Dead Reckoning like 3 times in the theater, but I haven't watched it since it came out on disc. So, but I think that she does get out, which which would be great because you know Rogue Nation through the Final Reckoning does feel like it's kind of like this ending saga with the Rogue Nation into the Apostles, and um but yeah, I really like her character. Vanessa Kirby is a really talented actress.
Yeah.
She is very good at acting with her eyes, which I really
Yeah.
like.
And
um
I really
yeah.
want to see her tackle more action movies. Like, I mean, she was probably the best part of Hobbs and Shaw, even though that movie was not it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
dude, it's the worst Fast and Furious movie, but we get her in the Fantastic Four.
yeah, that's what I'm
So
really
we'll
excited to see for
yeah.
like her Invisible Woman arc. It's gonna be something really great. But after that whole Paris sequence, you have this moment where White Widow does have the plutonium, and she wants, you know, Semlin Lane like a trade, and
Mhm.
obviously Ethan Hunt doesn't like that at all, which you will
Yeah.
understand. Yeah,
Yeah, this is such a brilliant like twist of the film. Um, so I mean, first off, on the commentary track, they talked about this how they shot the movie and they shot the end, and they realized at the end that they only had 2 plutonium balls at the end of the film. They had 3 at the beginning, and when they showed it to test audiences, they were like, where's that third ball at? And they were like, oh shoot, we never dealt with the third ball. And they were like, do we go back? Do we reshoot the first one so there's only 2? And they're like, no, we really want it to be, Jerusalem and Mecca and the Vatican. So like, well, so what do we do? And they decide, oh, well, what if we have the third ball be the down payment to Ethan as John Lark, that she can deliver what he's wanting. And it's just like a brilliant choice to all he had to do really was like a pickup shot and like a couple extra shots with Vanessa Kirby to say like, this is what I'm giving you. But yeah, when you're talking about, adding Solomon Lane in there. Um, it's such a genius because it's like you think, oh, Ethan will be fine. She's buying the fact that he's John Lark. We're all good. But then when you find out that she doesn't want cash, she wants Lane, you realize, oh no, the thing that he has to deliver is someone who will immediately recognize him not as John Lark, but as Ethan Hunt.
oh
He's
yeah,
screwed. What's
yeah.
he gonna do?
And it's such a clever way to bring back Sean Harris because man, his voice as this character is so terrifying, and
Yeah.
I think he got to be my favorite Mission Impossible villain because he's such a clever mastermind villain. He's not a villain that could do hand to hand combat, obviously, but like he has so much intelligence and so much planning ahead that makes like the main group that trying to go after him, being like the IMF, struggle. And it's such a clever way to bring him back to the franchise. And yeah.
Yeah. So he never wanted to come back. so
Oh,
he wanted when he signed on for the first Mission Impossible, the agreement was that they would kill him at the end because he was like, I only want to do one. Because he's more of like a, smaller film. He's not a big blockbuster guy. He doesn't really like doing blockbuster movies. So when he agreed to come on, as long as they killed him. And then when they're shooting Rogue One, or not Rogue One, Rogue Nation, the night that they were ready to shoot the chase scene at the end of the film, where they end up trapping Solomon Lane in the box.
Yeah.
Chris McQuarrie goes into Tom Cruise's trailer and he's thinking, I don't know if I want to kill him. And he's like, I'm trying to find a way to kill him, but I can't really come up with one. So he goes into Tom Cruise's trailer, hoping that Tom will give him an idea of how they could kill him in this sequence. And when he goes in the trailer, he goes, are you ready for tonight? And Tom goes, yeah, I got some thoughts though. And Chris goes, me too. And they both kind of look at each other for a second. And Tom goes, you don't want to kill him. You think that we should break him out in the second movie, don't you? And he goes, yeah. And Tom goes, I do too. Let's do it. So that night they go and tell Sean Harris, hey, so we're actually not going to kill you. We are going to imprison you and then break you out in the next movie. And he was like, no, you're supposed to kill me.
That's such a clever way. I mean,
yeah.
Again, it shows that Tom and Q have such a great understanding with each other. It's such a great thing.
But like you said, Sean Harris is so good. Like he's such a talented actor.
Super
and having someone that is as menacing and sinister and intense as he is without saying anything. He can just sit there. All that entire car chase sequence, he's just sitting in the passenger seat, not saying anything. And that's like the worst thing he could be doing. Like the fact that he's not saying anything is the most terrifying part.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, what's he thinking? What's he planning? What's he doing?
Yeah. And you know what? I love that sequence leads to like an awesome car chase sequence. Well, first of all, he, crashes Sean Harris, Emma Lane's truck into the water, and you see this villain drowning, and you see like the water coming up on him. And I thought that was really clever the way they shot that.
Yeah.
And then there's like this epic chase scene, and that leads into this motorcycle sequence chasing. And there's not a lot of dialogue. It's all music, and you hear the motors rolling. And I love that.
Yeah, the sound design of that chase is great. One of my favorite interactions in the film happens right before they go to break Lane out. And it's when Ethan and Walker are sitting in the truck and they're kind of waiting for the other truck to show up. They're waiting for the SWAT team. And he goes,
I know what you're talking about. Like,
yeah,
August Walker's asking, does Emma Lane do this? Does Emma Lane do this? And Hunter's like, yes. If you heard it, you probably did, right?
He said, if it makes your skin crawl, then he did it. And he goes, he looks at me and he goes, holy shit, you're the guy that caught him, aren't you?
Yeah.
And he goes, and he just kind of looks at him and gives him a look. He's like, yeah. And he's like, so what's your plan? And he's like, I'm going to figure it out. And I love this. That's the first scene that the two of them shot together.
Really?
And and they were trying to figure out, they weren't really sure how August Walker should be as a character yet. And McQuarrie said that when Henry Cavill did that line read, with the way that he performed that, holy shit, you're the guy that caught him. He was like, I know where this character is going to go now. I know who this character is. And he said, Henry Cavill, tonight, I want you to go home. And this weekend, I want you to watch It Happened One Night and Gone with the Wind, because you are Clark Gable in those movies. And they basically took that kind of like debonair vibe, that air that he brings in those two films, and injected that into this like CIA mole operative. And that's awesome stuff. I love that.
I definitely think this is Henry Cavill's best performance, without doubt.
Oh, I do too. I think that a lot of times he is like not really a lot of charisma. I think that, I know people love his Superman. I think that he's like okay, but everything else he's just kind of like to me. But I really like him in this.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't talked about like the little rivalry between Ilsa and Han, because obviously that is something really interesting because they're both friends, but they have both different missions. Ilsa wants to kill someone Lane, and Eden needs someone Lane, and it just has this like awesome back and forth between these amazing characters. And obviously
Mhm.
Rebecca Ferguson's absolute badass. You have Tom Cruise being badass, and their dialogue in this movie is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole film.
Yeah, Ilsa's such a great addition to kind of like what they're going for here because she pops up in Paris at the ballet or whatever it is, like the party ballet thing, and she we don't really like know why she's there. She just kind of like shows up, and only in that car chase do we realize that Ilsa's mission is to kill Lane, which itself comes direct conflict with Ethan's mission. So now this character that because of Rogue One we really like and we know is like kind of on our side, um, they write her as an obstacle that Ethan can't kill, that he can't beat her. He doesn't want to kill Ilsa, but he has to protect Lane. So neither of them can win, and he can't just like eliminate Elsa in order to
Yeah.
complete his mission, which makes everything more jumbled. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like adds layers to the story, which is something great with jam-packed action, which is something super rare in any Hollywood movie. And we realistically barely get that other than the John Wick franchise. But that's it.
Yeah, it's great when you get like really character driven motivations in your action films, in your big blockbuster action films like this. Like that mission, those missions come into conflict with each other. Yes, they're given those missions, but both of those missions come back to the characters. And if there's one thing that, Chris McQuarrie is really good at, it's putting the characters in the right situations for themselves so that they can interact in a way that benefits the character and also benefits the story.
Yeah, facts. And another thing is like Hunt didn't want to drive his car into the motorcycle of Ilsenfels, but
Yeah.
that must have hurt though.
And yeah. And after that, the line from Lane, I think is really good.
Oh, that
Where
was
he
Ilsa.
says, yeah, where he says, that was Ilsa. And
Shut
then
up.
he goes, "Shut up," and he goes, "Very interesting." And then after that is he says, "It's good to see you again, Ethan." And that to me is extremely chilling,
Yeah.
that he's kind of just taking things in, and then now, "Oh, it's good to see you again. It's good to see you again, Ethan." You know how he talks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, such a terrifying guy. Like, only reason he's silent is he's like planning something out. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I got out. I could plan my great plan of destroying the world." I'm like, "Yeah, this guy is crazy."
Yeah. It's so good because in his mind, he's like, "This is all my plan." Um And for him, he's like, "Oh, the fact that Ethan is here, that's great." Because the plan, right, was that Ethan was going to be under a John Lark mask, but the fact that it's Ethan out in the wind, that's even better for Lane. Because
Yeah.
as we do learn later, the plan the entire time was Ethan should be set up as John Lark,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Walker would be the one to frame him.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I
Yeah.
also like the moment that I knew Walker was sketchy was the moment when he's about to shoot the police officer. He was thinking about it.
Oh,
He-
the guy. So
yeah,
there's the 2 officers. I'm trying to remember. There's the girl and the guy. Is it the girl officer that he almost shoots?
yeah, the girl officer.
He
Yeah,
goes to grab the gun on his hip,
yeah.
and then he goes, "No, no, 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 no." Yeah.
That's the moment I knew something was up with August Walker. It's like a sort of foreshadow for him to have like a villain turn.
That's yeah, I feel dumb when I wa when I watch this movie because the first time I saw it, I I was not at all, I did not suspect him at all one time until the actual reveal that he goes up to Lane and he's like trying to break Lane out. All the stuff with him talking to Angela Bassett, giving her the phone, suggesting that Ethan is John Lark. I was like, oh, this is like really good that like these partners are going to be kind of like going at each other. That he believes so wholeheartedly that he can find John Lark, that he thinks that it could be Ethan. And he makes a good case. He makes a good case, I think,
Yeah.
a guy whose government has betrayed him over and over again. I mean, literally every movie. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and and that's kind of been a theme, and that's a theme in the opening to Dead Reckoning as well. You know, gosh, I get like goosebumps talking about these
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, me too. I'm getting chills,
Yeah,
man.
but
Uh,
yeah, I mean, he makes a great case for it, and so when we get that scene where we go, oh shoot, like they're actually like saying that this could be the
yeah,
reality,
and then
is really good.
you get the classic Mission Impossible moment that this was like a whole plan, and I love that fact that he says, I am, I am fine. I am, the group. They say they're nothing but the people who wear masks, and then you see, Benji take off the mask and not Samuel Lane. I thought that was brilliant because,
Yeah.
like, it goes back to the moment in the airplane where Inhan's saying we need John Clark's mask, and he's like, people really fall for this shit, and just having that full circle moment is
Yeah.
so
It's
clever.
funny, I never even, like, thought about how, like, he's the one who calls out how stupid the mask thing is, and yet he's the one who gets tricked by the mask at the end of the movie. Um, yeah, and it's genius, the reveal. I love Sean Harris's performance in that scene too,
Yeah.
where if you think about it, it's Sean Harris playing Solomon Lane as played by Benji.
Yeah.
Um, and he's kind of got this like extra layer of thing going on in there it's clearly a Solomon Lane performance, but there's like a little extra kind of like bounce to it
Yeah.
that is him trying to do, okay, what if Benji was playing me? What would that look like?
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, that's all great. And I don't know why I was struggling to say I am five. I mean, and I am F. There we go. There we go. Got it.
IMF, yeah. What's the line that the so Alec Baldwin, when he comes in and he puts the gun to Walker, he says a line that's really good, and I can't remember what it
Yeah,
is.
I keep I I know what you're talking about, but I forgot the line as well. It was such a
Yeah,
good
he
line.
says like, "Oh, I've gone and ruined your day, haven't I?"
Oh yeah, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then Walker flips, grabs the gun, and puts it back at him and pulls the trigger, and he goes,
yeah.
"Oh, and you were doing so well up until then." Both of those are improvised lines.
I know, right? It's so
It's so good.
it's so good. And then to see that really awesome shootout scene in the dark, which was awesome.
Yeah. I love that it also calls back to, we find out that he's got 2 essentially, like, of his own guys or apostles, or I don't think they're apostles, but, it goes back to the mousetrap scene in the beginning with the fake news report, that what Ethan uses to spring his trap is that he just says, "Go," and that's the same thing that Walker says to spring his trap, is
Go.
he's like, "Oh, you're surrounded." He goes, "Am I? Go," and that's when the 2 guys start shooting everybody. I love it.
Yeah, and then it leads to this epic chase sequence, and you know where that's going. But it adds humor again with Banshee said, I meant, well, no, before the Banshee scene, the church scene. Tom Cruise like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed too that that's the same, I think that's the same cathedral that they shot, uh, Paddington 2 in.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it looked very similar, so I was like,
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure because obviously that movie takes place in London, but
wasn't
are they
that
in
the
London? Are they in London by then?
Yeah, they were in London.
Yeah, I think so.
I
But
thought
yeah,
I thought the church looked a little bit like the same church where
yeah,
the
there's like that upper kind of like belfry balcony thing,
yeah.
and
Oh,
I think that that's the same shot.
yeah, which leads to this humor joke. Benji saying, "Why is he running in circles?"
Yeah, because he's running down that or up those stairs. Um, yeah, the whole thing with like Benji watching him on the iPad is really fun. You know, him not realizing that he's like on like the second story of a building. Him
Um,
saying go right, and he realizes he's got screen lock on and it's upside down.
yeah,
Like,
that's so
yeah, again,
funny.
it's the same. It's the same like Brad Bird style comedy from Ghost Protocol, where it's like I have all this tech, but like human error is what makes the tech not work,
Yeah, like
and I think that's really fun.
like the whole scene where Tom Cruise jumping out of the window and you see everyone staring at him and yells,
Yeah,
"Benchy, I'm jumping out a window!"
yeah.
And I thought that was
The
great.
extras in that scene I love. There's like the
Dude,
lady in like this like black and white dress who seems like so confused, like who is this person?
wha-
That I think is
wha-
so good.
what if they were actually working and then like Tom
Yeah,
Cruise comes out nope.
and the only way he gets a chair because like the one lady like stands up and he just grabs her chair and throws it out the window. But it's a great like I love a Tom Cruise running scene. I
Yeah,
love it. And this one is really really good.
yeah.
And for me, you know, the camera work I think sells it, but we haven't really talked about Lauren Balfe's score,
Oh
which I
yeah.
think is the best score in all of the Mission Impossible movies. He knows how to take the, you know, Mission Impossible motif and blend it in like so many like unique great ways. And that the musical sequence of that foot chase I think is kind of like where it like really hits a high note. Like I think the shot where he's running on top of that like really long straightaway and
Yeah.
the camera does kind of this like wide, super wide shot and kind of hovers around to pans to the right a little bit. You kind of get the skyline a little bit in his
Yeah,
background.
it's
And
so
then the
good.
score really is like hitting this like big crescendo.
It
I
just
love that shot.
I love that shot too. Plus, the score just adds so much more intensity and anxiety. I do think moments when Tom Cruise is doing something really scary, and it makes you really feel like you're part of the movie. And I
Yeah. And he
think
did all that on a broken foot. You know, it's crazy.
crazy. Um, well, you finally catches up to August Walker, and you see the picture of Julia. I'm like,
Well, it's
damn,
a great, great shot too, where he grabs the bottom of that elevator and he thinks he's gonna ride it to the top and trick Walker, and he looks up and Walker's staring at him
yeah,
through the bottom of the floor. And it's like shocks him and he pulls out his gun and he aims at him. And you see Ethan like look down, like, do I drop? I'm too high to drop. I'm stuck. I'm gonna have to take this bullet. And he's like, he's not done with you yet. And he like pulls out the picture of Julia, puts it down.
yeah.
It's such a good twist.
Yeah, and plus it goes from like the opening scene when you see this like dream sequence of Tom Cruise and Ian Hunt and Julia are getting married, and you see Samuel Lane just terrifying them, and you see like a nuclear explosion.
Mhm.
It goes full circle again. That's why I love this movie so much. Everything just wraps up so
Yeah,
nicely.
it's really insane. Like it's hard to imagine any other way, but that opening scene is not how they intended it. They had originally it was supposed to be Alec Baldwin being playing the minister to marry the two of them, but he was stuck in he was out of New Zealand at that time, but Sean Harris was there, and they go, "Well, let's just have Solomon Lane be the one to marry them." But it works so much better because, like you said, it comes full circle that really this movie is about the three of these characters. It's about what is Julia's fate? How does Julia factor into this? And the way that they are leveraging her against each other, the way that at least Solomon Lane is leveraging Julia against Ethan.
Yeah, 100%. And I like I love to see like the conversation between Luther and Ilsa when Luther says he didn't only care about two women's life being Julia and obviously the second one being Ilsa. It just had this like nice heart to heart moment between the two characters, and
Mhm.
the conversation felt so real, and it made me. It's a little bit tear jerker, but it got me a little
Yeah.
bit. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's such a that's my favorite like Ving Rhames performance in all of these movies. Um and it's just the thing about it that gets me is that here you have this like spy, Ethan Hunt, who he is like intentionally not really had any long-term connections. And yet there's one person who has been constant in these movies, and it's been Luther. And there is no one that knows Ethan Hunt better than Luther.
Yeah,
And here he is talking about his friend and the connection that he's seen his friend have with really only two people. And he's talking to the second one and saying, look, I'm telling you this. He is my best friend. He will do anything for the people that he cares about. I mean, he chose me over those 3 plutonium bombs. And I'm telling you, do not go on this mission. Like, we may fail because you don't go, but I'm telling you, we will fail if you do go, is essentially what he's telling her.
yeah.
Um, and I love his performance in there. And she only is giving reactions to it. And it's so subtle. Her performance is so subtle, but so perfect. I love
Yeah,
it.
I love it. And just let it all go. And then Ethan's like, okay.
He's like, all right, well, I guess I got to save you too. Um, yeah, yeah,
which
that's
leads
such a good scene.
which leads to the climax of this movie, which is probably one of the most intense climaxes in any Mission Impossible movie. Because you have, well, they cannot like get rid of plutonium until the timer sets and sets at 15 minutes. And later on, they had to do it in 1 second. And it really makes you feel like an impossible mission because Tom Cruise has to go to a helicopter and take down August Walker, and that whole camera work, and it's so impressive.
Yeah, I love that it sets up, like you said, an impossible mission. That the fact that 3 people in 3 locations have to do the same thing at the exact same time in order to disarm both of these bombs. And um, I think that it does such a good job at setting the stakes before they even get to the camp in Kashmir. While they're driving in the Jeep is when they're talking about it. And there had originally been another scene. And if you remember the first trailer for this movie, there was a shot of like basically like a decimated village.
Yeah,
And they shot an entire sequence where they come across a village on their way to Kashmir, on their way to the camp that Walker and Lane had in given basically like they'd wiped out this village and destroyed it entirely. And it was to kind of like set up like, oh shoot, like these guys are mean business. But we already know they mean business, so they skipped it and instead they focused all that energy on the Jeep conversation. And I
yeah,
thought that was really, really smart. Because it just gives us the information that we need. Like, I don't need to know that these guys are crazy and that they will do whatever to do these things. We've known that from the very beginning. The bigger the greater the suffering, the greater the peace. Like,
yeah.
that has been the constant throughout this film. But yeah, the going after Walker in the helicopter is an incredible action sequence. Incredible. And it's all happening in camera. It is the most amazing
Yeah,
thing. Him climbing up that payload to get into the chopper is bananas.
crazy. Tom Cruise literally learning how to ride a helicopter for this whole
Yeah, fly. And he was saying like all their time in New Zealand, he would like shoot during the day and then he would go do all his helicopter classes. And
Yeah,
he got like his first license in like 13 days and he was like just grinding out getting that learning
yeah.
how to pilot all the time.
How did I forget about Julia showing up during that scene with the husband? That
Yeah.
was. Like you finally see Julia again, which is a character that I really enjoy in the Mission Impossible movies when she shows up. I mean, just like kind of like the heart and soul of the franchise.
Yeah, she's such an interesting character because she is so representative of the life that Ethan could have had, that he did have for a certain amount of time, right? In Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah,
And I love that she pops up in Ghost Protocol at the end and kind of reminds us of like the heart that Ethan has and the love that he has for her. And um Tom Cruise said that one of the questions that he got the most about Mission Impossible while they were doing Rogue Nation was, what's up with Julia? Like, what is she doing? Where is she? And they decided that they wanted to make a movie to end Julia's character arc. And so that's what this was like,
yeah,
let's put a cap on the Julia story. And I love the look of the shot where they have their conversation. In fact, it's so perfect that I thought it was CGI. I thought that was a green screen background that we see in like a lot of like MCU movies, Disney property stuff, big budget stuff, where like it's clearly like a manufactured background, a manufactured landscape with like a fake golden hour. But no, that really all was real landscape, real practical lighting. It was just the golden hour. They had 8 minutes to catch that lighting, and they shot that conversation in 8 minutes
yeah. That's
and used it.
impressive. And then then you have Luther and Julia heart to heart scene when they're trying to fuse plutonium. That was great. It was a cute moment too, and it adds another bit of humor because it cuts to Rebecca Ferguson is like, oh, I like her, and I thought that was like a little cute
Yeah,
interaction there.
where she's like, I'm just checking. I love where she goes, how is he? And Luther goes, same old Ethan.
And then cuts to yeah, and then
And now Ethan's in the helicopter, like trying to chase him down.
And then that adds humor against like Hunt's like I'm in a helicopter, and then Betch is like, "What are you doing in a helicopter?" It's like I'll figure it out.
Yeah, the mantra of the Mission Impossible movies. I'll figure it out.
They do eventually.
Yeah.
It's,
That's basically the story for Ethan is, I'll figure it out eventually.
it's all on fate. Honestly, it's on fate and hope. But I love the shootout scene in the helicopter. August Walker shooting while trying to shoot down Hunt's helicopter. All that camera movement, seeing like the hills and you see like the snowy hills too. I thought that was beautiful, man.
It's just, I mean, it's hard to replicate actually shooting these things with cameras, with real environments, with real people, with real stunt performers. I think about like the newest Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny. And I had so many problems with it. And one of my big ones was that there was that rickshaw, or like the kind of like
Yeah,
little like
rickshaw. Yeah,
trike chase
yeah,
where they're riding through whatever, I think it was like Jakarta or something like that. And they're riding through, and he's like falling off the side and all this stuff. And everything around them was CGI. There was no like actual
yeah,
like physical danger for the actors or the stunt performers. Everything around them was just CGI. And it just didn't feel as like tangible. Didn't
yeah,
feel like I was watching like something real. Whereas here, this is incredibly real, down to
yeah,
Tom Cruise flying that helicopter himself.
yeah.
And it's just
Like
such a huge difference.
yeah, it's cinematic at its best,
Yeah.
and then you have that like scene when Tom Cruise crashes the helicopter to Henry Cavill, and then there's a helicopter. Well, Henry Cavill's helicopter is like rolling, and I'm like, wow, this is intense. And
That scene with so I have a Dolby Atmos system, and that scene in Dolby Atmos is amazing. Like as the chopper is like rolling, kind of like falling down that like split thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like thing like the
You
gap
can hear
between
like the rocks falling all around you and stuff. It's
yeah.
really the Atmos track on this film is incredible.
By the way, I saw this movie in 4DX while moving seats. I don't
Oh
know if it's
wow.
the same, and
Yeah.
my drink and popcorn went all over the place during that scene. I was a mess. Um, yeah.
That's funny.
Um, but like, remember the scene when Henry Cavill's face gets burned off from the oil?
Yeah.
That was crazy. That was crazy. What gas? Oil.
Yeah, I think it's like the fuel line.
Yeah, gasoline. There we go. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a great I don't know, it's like a simple thing that just kind of by disfiguring him, it's almost kind of like the mask is off. This is the true John Lark type ending. It's almost like the monster at the end of the movie is now the burned man.
Yeah.
It's like a very cool like decision to have. Just like at the end, we're gonna burn this guy's face.
Yeah.
Why? Because bad guys with burned faces are scarier. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what to tell you.
Like Two-Face, for example. He's
Yeah,
terrifying. Yeah, there we go.
yeah, and it's interesting. You know, you say Two Face. I mean, the character himself is literally a two-faced character, right? Where
Yeah.
he is August Walker and he is John Lark at the same time. So burning half his face is a really clever homage to that.
Yeah. I love that piece of dialogue too. Why won't you die? And then they, fall even further. And
Yeah, because I'm
then,
Ethan Hunt. That's why.
I mean, you can't kill me. But the whole fight scene on the mountain between Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill is so good, dude. I mean,
It is really good. And adding in I mean, it's just like you're stacking these elements on top of each other, where you have the ticking time bomb, the literal ticking time bomb, and then on top of that, you have the ticking time bomb of this hook that is hanging on this rock
yeah,
that is slowly cracking. And you're like, this chopper is we're going to lose this chopper. And these guys are basically in it or next to it to where they're going to get caught. And then it breaks and falls into another one. And then it breaks again. And like by that point, they're hanging on to the rope. And yeah, it's just like these like stacking ticking time bombs on
bombs.
top of each other are it's brilliant stuff.
And then eventually you see Tom Cruise pull the hook, and you have this like, oh fuck, I'm dead moment for August Walker. You see like
that
the
hook
eyes
goes right into his head.
And for a PG-13 movie, I was surprised to see that because I mean it's not really brutal or anything, but still, like, damn, bro.
Yeah, they definitely don't go like super crazy hard on that. But I mean, even when he falls down along with that chopper and the chopper hits and rolls and then he smacks the rock, there's like a blood spatter on that rock.
I know, right? It was so good. Like, man, this movie is fantastic. Like, this is a masterpiece.
But then you also have that kind of like, I mean, we let's back up because we totally bypassed. You know, we talked about Luther and Julia, but we missed Benji and Ilsa and Lane fighting in that cabin, which is such an excellently choreographed fight sequence.
Oh, without a doubt about it. Because you have Benji trying, use the beer bottle thing to get glass to cut himself free, and then you have Ilsa try to fight Semblin Lane, and those two people were doing a great fight sequence. It's such a great little fight scene that adds stakes, and I think that's what this movie does best at having so much moments to care about these characters and want to see them succeed. And yeah,
like you have your two bombs, and on one it's a very like calm, like there's really no opposition to Luther and Julia and their bomb. The only thing is just the fact that it's a ticking time clock and he's having to figure out how to disarm this bomb. But by having Lane, who's like, I'm going to die here, it really changes the entire game entirely, because now you have a guy who is stopping them from doing the thing that they need to do in order to disarm the bomb, which is disarm it at the same time as everyone else. So by having Lane there, he's literally stopping them. But it's interesting because every movie feels like Benji could die.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
every movie
yeah.
feels like they're gonna kill Benji off, and this one, like, I think gets the closest, and you're so like worried for Benji. I am not a big Simon Pegg fan. As like a person, I'm never like excited when I see Simon Pegg in a movie. But I think he's fun in these movies. But I really am always worried for Benji. Like, these movies have made me really care about this character, and to me, it all goes back to the friendship stuff with Ethan. That these people care about Ethan, and he cares about them, and so I care about them.
Exactly, and it's just well written to make sure we care about these characters. It's like they develop these characters to the point we represent these characters when we watch these movies. We watch these movies for these characters. We don't watch these movies for Ethan Hunt only. We watch these movies for Luther. We watch these movies for Ilsa, Benji, all the iconic Mission Impossible characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes this franchise flow together even more.
Yeah.
And eventually, Tom Cruise, well, after that, August Walker brutal death scene, God. Yeah, I really wish he returned, but he's dead. But
hey, you never know.
And they could pull a Fast and Furious.
John Lark's back, Hookhead.
Hookhead
just shows up with a hook still in his head.
But like,
I love the fake. I love the fake out.
Yeah,
where they use the lens flare from the sun to make you think that maybe Ethan didn't get it in time.
Yeah.
But then really quickly, I like that they do it quickly. They go, no, it's just the sun. He got it, and he's got the thing in his teeth, and he spits it out.
Yeah. Oh my God. You know, like when I first saw that, I'm like, oh my God. They failed. It's over. This is the last movie.
Yeah.
It's like a mini, tiny heart that leads to a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is fantastic. There's so much impact in this film.
Yeah, this is the best. You said this is the best American action movie. For me, it's the second best. I think Die Hard is like the holy grail of action films, but this one to me is the second best American action film. I think it's pretty much perfect.
For me, it's probably one Fallout, 2, probably John Wick 4, and 3. Not Furiosa, but Mad Max Fury Road, probably. I was going to say Furiosa, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I call it the holy action trinity is Die Hard, Mission Impossible, Fallout, and the Raid 2. Those to me are the three best action movies.
Oh, yeah, best action movies. I think I got Raid 1 over Raid 2, but it's close between the two.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else you want to add, or should we cap it off?
Well, I guess if there's one thing that I think that a lot of people look at Fallout and they go, "Oh, like, why does this work so well?" And I think you talked about the characters, and I think that's right. I just think this movie has so much momentum, and one thing that this movie gets right, against the marketing for Dead Reckoning. I want to make clear, I love Dead Reckoning. Like I said, I love all of these movies.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that this movie. So like the big stunt that they were pushing in this movie was the helicopter stuff.
Yeah.
If you remember, like you'd go see an IMAX movie and they would have like a featurette about the IMAX, about the helicopter chase. And like, we're learning these helicopters and it's all done in camera and we're doing this like extremely dangerous move. And in the lead up to Dead Reckoning, we got the same thing, but with the cliff jump on the motorcycle. And I think what's interesting is that one of those stunts is a stunt on its own, and one of them is a stunt that is part of a larger sequence of stunts.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, if I asked you like, oh, what's the like hallmark stunt scene in Dead Reckoning, I think most people would probably point to like the train scene or the car
Yeah.
chase. I don't think anyone would really point to the cliff jump as like that's the thing that that movie can hang its hat on. Whereas in Fallout, it's the Halo jump, it's the car chase, it's the helicopter chase. There's all these different scenes. It's the motorcycle chase. There's all these different scenes that work so well. It's because it's extremely competent, well choreographed stunt work within a larger sequence of similar stunts, but with
Yeah.
one kind of like peak stunt that stands out of that group. This movie does that in spades. And I think that that's why this movie is so effective. But it never loses sight of the characters. Never
Exactly. It
does.
has a perfect balance between character moments and stunts. And I feel like my issue with Dead Reckoning is they keep pushing the AI plot too much. Oh, if the AI does this, I'm like they keep it kept getting repetitive to the point.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I'm hoping, if you don't mind talking about Dead Reckoning for a second. Now, I have not seen the trailer for the Final Reckoning. I'm going to avoid it as much as I can. I normally do not watch trailers, but when it comes to Mission Impossible, sometimes I will break. But
I'm probably gonna have to break and start doing
I
like
know that I'm going to see it in IMAX. I'm going to see something in IMAX, and it's going to
yeah,
pop up, and I'll be like, okay, I'm glad that I'm seeing it in
yeah.
Dolby or in IMAX. Um, but um, shoot, what was I saying? I totally forgot.
Something about like the
Something about
identity
Dead
thing.
Reckoning. Oh, I would like to see that the AI, which I can't remember, did they give it a name?
I don't remember.
I would love it if that ends up being the rabbit's foot from Mission Impossible 3.
Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be a good.
Because the rabbit's foot is the stupidest thing, in my opinion, that this franchise has ever done, which is a MacGuffin that has no given purpose, no given like description. We don't know what it does. We don't know what it looks like. It's just like this nebulous thing that everyone's trying to get. I would love if it is actually the AI thing at the end of this franchise, that the rabbit's
Yeah,
foot that we couldn't get in 3 ends up being the thing that tries to bring Ethan down in his final 2 films. I think that'd be great.
that'd be. I think that'd be a great way to have a super plot line and make it great. That'd
Yeah.
be yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that idea. I think we cover everything.
I think so. I mean, yeah, I mean, it pretty much ends like Ethan's in the like hospital bed in the camp, and they're like laughing. He's like, "Don't make me laugh."
My
Um,
abs hurt.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we covered
uh,
pretty much everything.
Simon
But
Lane got captured by the MI6, and that's
mhm.
that. Don't think Sean Harris returning now.
I don't know if they'll bring him back. I
Yeah,
If they did, I would not be mad.
if it did,
It does feel like these 4 films are like one story.
it's like phase, like it's like the MCU. It's like phase one, phase two, phase three. Where like Mission Impossible was different, but like you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess like to close out, I can just like gush about these movies for a second. I just love this franchise so much. I'm really like I'm torn and I'm sad that it's ending. Um, should we hold up our
Yeah,
individual
sure.
copies of Mission Impossible Fallout? I'm really sad that it's ending,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad that it's ending on such a, I think, strong note. Again, we haven't seen Final Reckoning yet, so who knows? This could be a terrible movie. But I don't
I
have
doubt
a
it.
yeah, I don't have a doubt that this will be a fantastic conclusion. And that it's like when the worst movie in your franchise is like better than most action movies, that's saying something.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, it was really great talking to you about Mission Impossible Fallout. Thanks for coming
Absolutely, dude.
in. And yeah, all right. Peace. MBK
Thank
out.
you. Thanks everybody.
Okay.